Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 115, Negotiating in the Moment, Creating Agreements to Create Trust. If you've been hanging out with us all month, you know we've been talking all about healthy negotiating to have healthier relationships, how to negotiate in loving ways, and how in order to be able to do this, we have to have some skills. We have to have some tools that we are comfortable using. I can tell you from working with relationships for years, I personally believe that our agreements make or break trust in our relationships. They are so important. So all month we've been talking about sometimes why it's hard to know how to negotiate, to ask for what you need, why it's hard to know how to have healthy conflict when it's necessary. We talked about the struggles you may have on the inside and how your childhood greatly influenced this ability to be able to negotiate in healthy, positive ways that are mutually beneficial. So today we're going to finish out the month by talking about what does negotiating really look like in the moment and why the moment is so crucial. But first, I want to go over and review a little bit how important it is to look at practicing healthy boundaries everywhere in your life so that when it comes to asking for what you need or relating to someone who's asking you for what they need from you, that you can do it and it's healthy and it's positive for the most part and it feels okay. So as a reminder, first you need to do the who owns what. What feeling, what need, what boundaries being expressed by you, and perhaps trying to understand what is going on for the other person as well, and why, just as your feelings are valid, their feelings are valid. Just as your needs matter, so do theirs. Just as you want your boundaries respected, practicing honoring someone else's boundaries is crucial for them to be able to count on you, to see you as someone they can come to and rely on. So you want to own yours, you want to own your thoughts, your feelings, your needs, your boundaries, and learn how to detach, to let go of theirs, to honor and respect and accept. You don't have to like it. You don't even have to agree with it. You can think it's crazy. That doesn't matter. What matters is we give them what we want to receive. And so detachment goes hand in hand with empathy. We've talked about that before. So I think sometimes first we need to do the boundary work of loving detachment. Because if you're not already proficient in that, it can seem very off-putting at first. It can create anxiety for you if you're not sure what it really means. And it can create anxiety because when you do figure out what it really means, you're not going to like it because it means letting go. Well, I should say you won't like it at first. You'll love it later. It means letting go of outcomes. It means letting go of whatever is going on for the other person. Because if we're still so caught up in fixing them, and fixing them means getting them to think or feel or do what we want them to think or feel or do, then I think negotiating can look like a disguise for more control. And we need to go back to the drawing board. We're not ready yet. Because healthy negotiating means we stay on our side and we let go of what we think, feel, and need around their choices, which are not our business really. Do they impact us? Sure. But it's not our place to change them. I want you to think for a moment, do you want someone coming in here today and telling you what to think and feel and need and not want, and what your boundaries should be? So you want to try to put yourself in their shoes too as best you can. So if you're the nagger, imagine how it must feel for them to be nagged. Instead, if you worked on detachment, you would give them the freedom of choice. You would know first what your own choices are that you need to own. Get peaceful, go to them and say, look, I have to accept. This is what you say you want to do. I just want you to know that if you choose to do that, I can't support it. I care about you and I'm here. Or these are aspects I can support, but I can't support some of them and I'm so sorry. So it's more of a collaborative spirit. It is loving and kind with boundaries, with letting go, and sometimes withholding what we really think. We have to think about, to what end do I tell them that? What am I really trying to do? Am I trying to get them to see the light, get them to see the truth, get them to see the better way? If I'm evangelizing, I'm trying to control, and I really need to be careful. That's not negotiating, guys. That's control. There's a difference. Control is all about fear, and control is all about the victim mindset, and I want to talk about that for a moment. You can't go into a negotiation feeling beat up by the other person or that it's completely unfair to you, because it's really going to be hard to be in a place of choice. It's going to be even harder to have understanding, to try to put yourself in their shoes. It's really hard to have, I think, healthy perspective when we're hanging on the cross. It's just too hard. We got to work through what some of that is. And sometimes you might need to grieve a little bit, some very valid, difficult things, some hard feelings that you might have to surrender to. And the other half is probably cognitive. How do I want to look at this? Do I want to give that person, the world, events, circumstances, that much power over my happiness? Because I get to decide that. Things like that. How solution-focused are you? Are you more interested in getting one in and winning as opposed to preserving the relationship? Maybe making some concessions, some compromises. Being thoughtful and kind in your exchange with them. So working on healthy detachment and boundaries is key, I think. If you really struggle with that, you know what I'm going to say. Go back and listen to the earlier episodes. Get a coach. Start working on this. It's totally changeable, but it does take time and effort. While you're doing the boundary work, the other thing we want to do is get really clear with ourselves about what is negotiable and what is not. You have to own what you're willing and not willing to do first. Defining boundaries are things about you that never change. You'll never rob a bank for anyone. You won't kill people. Things like that. We got to figure out where we are, who we are, what are we willing to do and not willing to do, just overall. And then we look at this particular situation, and you have to figure out what works for you and what doesn't, and why. Get your why together. Remember, your values will show you your boundaries oftentimes. Your choices are key, and you must own them in order to feel grounded and healthy and confident. You can't put them on others by playing victim. Get clear about where you stand. Sometimes this might even take a couple of days, depending on the issue. That's okay. Run your thoughts and feelings by healthy people. See what their feedback is. Get the vibe from them, but only take that as information. Spend some quiet time by yourself. Get clear, journal, meditate, whatever you need to do. Get your quiet knowing going. Will you have the time, the money, or the energy to do what's being asked? For example, will it interfere with something else you're trying to get done or experience? How do you want to be treated? What feels right and fair right now? It's not other people's job to figure that out for us, even though secretly we might love that. We need to get clear with ourselves so that we can simply share our truth with others. And we have to get clear that we're not going to cave either or roll over. That's the hardest part when people first start setting boundaries and negotiating needs. If you do, don't beat yourself up. That just means you have to do some more work. Maybe some more loving support around you. Maybe you need some friends to remind you you're not crazy for asking for what you need, and know your boundary's not over the top. I think this often happens when there's manipulation involved in relationships, and we've gone through that in previous episodes. People need to accept where you are, and if someone's trying to talk you out of that, unless you're trying to do something dangerous or illegal or immoral, then they don't have great boundaries, and that is something to really keep in mind. Because if we're negotiating, we have to assume that both parties have a decent understanding of healthy boundaries and detachment, and they can accept and respect where the other person is. Being talked out of your truth means you're not in a safe relationship, I'm sorry to say. Whether that's family of origin, your boss, your partner, your best friend, your sister, doesn't matter. That's a whole other conversation that we don't have time to get into today, but I do think it is helpful to kind of evaluate your relationships as you're working on negotiating. And you will see actually in practice, assuming you are doing your best on your end to be kind and using I statements and using healthy boundaries and all of that, that should go well if the other person has the same capability and is interested in negotiating. Remember, manipulators are all about control. They're not really interested in making agreements. Not really. So let's get to the moment. I swear, I think we could prevent so much unnecessary conflict and unhealthy dynamics in our relationships if we could just take care of ourselves in the moment with each other, instead of letting things pile up, instead of not saying what you really think and feel and need, instead of not saying no in the moment. But I understand if this was easy to do, you'd be doing it already. So I encourage you, if it is hard for you to just do it in the moment, revisit our talks about childhood dynamics and how being open and vulnerable in the moment maybe wasn't taught to you and it wasn't safe to do. The good thing is this is very learnable and changeable, and no matter how hard it was for you, you can make it better. In the moment means when you're actually being asked to do something or not do something. It's when something happens and all of a sudden you need to negotiate. You need to say no. Maybe you need help. Maybe they need help. Maybe you just changed your mind. Maybe you saw a behavior in them that was really uncomfortable. This is what we don't practice enough, I think. I think we think it, but we are afraid to say it. And working through the fear and grabbing the courage to practice saying it in the moment is really important. Saying things like, hey, can you, and then finish the sentence. Can you help me carry this? Can you hold the door for me? Hey, can you give me a minute? I'm trying to finish this email. Or maybe I don't think I'll have time to do that. Right when someone asks you, in a very kind and nice way, that they need help from you, they need something from you, or they want to go do something with you. Maybe you say, I might need some help right now with this if you can, as you're in the kitchen and things are blowing up and not working right. Or maybe you're trying to carry too many packages and some fall. Or maybe you say, I'm so sorry, I'm in the middle of something. Can I call you right back? Can I get back to you on Tuesday? So in the moment when something comes up, to say what we need. And notice most of those statements I just said were pretty vulnerable. They were I statements. You were letting them know about you. You were asking genuinely. There was emotional honesty there. There was no innuendo. There was no vagueness. There was no guilting. There was no snapping at anyone. Because a lot of times we will get frustrated and get snippy with someone that we love because we're not taking care of ourselves in the moment. We're not being honest. We're not saying in a loving way, can you get out of the kitchen because I don't have room to work? But even harder is to confront in the moment and to be vulnerable. Now, a lot of these things we're going to talk about today are assuming healthy enough people on the other side. If you are dealing with a manipulator, if you're dealing with someone toxic, you may need a little bit more coaching. And some of these things will not work. I'm assuming here, these are your better relationships where the other party, again, knows something about boundaries and can be emotionally honest and can say and hear no. All right. So saying things like, wow, that really hurt my feelings. Or, I know you want me to support you right now. Gosh, I wish I could. But I am really worried about your plan. I just want to know you're going to be okay. Things like, I feel like I've really let you down and I blew it today and I'm so sorry. And you have every right to be angry with me. I know I screwed up. Or even more vulnerable, I'm really angry with myself today. I'm sad. I'm struggling. I'm trying to forgive me for what just happened. Taking the risk requires courage and commitment. Commitment to yourself to be genuine and emotionally honest. Commitment to them to be genuine and honest. So that they know that your words matter and you say what you mean and you mean what you say. And you try your best to keep it about you. Because what happens when we don't negotiate enough in the moment, again, we end up annoyed, resentful. We are going to leak this stuff out sideways. It's coming. You will even get upset about something completely unrelated, but something that doesn't even warrant being upset about. You're going to get it out because we have this innate desire to express and to tell people our truth so that we can resolve it, so that we can be known and understood and loved and cared about. We don't want to shut down, but we will. We'll get quiet, we'll pull away, we'll get shitty, we'll be disconnected, and they will feel it intuitively. They may not know what's going on, but they know something isn't comfortable. And when you stockpile your resentments, here comes the 90-day fight, where every 90 days you blow it up. And you tell them all the ways they pissed you off and let you down and disappointed you. But here's the thing. How fair is that to you or them? They had no idea perhaps what happened in the moment. But if you could have taken care of yourself then and said no when you need to say no, or spoke up when your feelings got hurt, resolved issues as quickly as you could, you wouldn't need that big fight every 90 days. The other piece I want to get into is agreements make or break trust in relationships, like I said earlier. So negotiating is only going to work with another person if they can count on you to follow through on what you agreed to. Do not tell them what they want to hear. Do not tell them something you're not ready to do or stop doing. I would encourage you just to walk back in the kitchen and say, you know what? I know I said, yeah, I could do that tomorrow, but you know what? I've got so much going on and I don't want to let you down. Can we talk about this again and figure out something different? Go back, apologize, be honest, so that you can follow through. Especially if there's a history in your relationship, or maybe you haven't. It's not that you didn't want to. You probably piled too much on your plate. You procrastinated. You forgot. You overpromised. Then you couldn't deliver. So you've let them down. Or maybe you have a history where you'd scramble at the last minute, but they had to ask you 4 times to do something you had already agreed to 3 weeks ago. When you agree to something, own it. And know that the commitment is about trust. It's not about the thing you're getting ready to do or stop doing. It's about trust. In as much as you keep your agreements and follow through, they will have trust in you. And you in them. Looking around at your relationships, I want you to think about how well do you do? Not perfectly, but on average. And what about the people in your life? Can you count on them to uphold their agreements? That is why when people have huge events that happen in their life, sometimes tragic events or loss of a loved one, They say those are the moments when you know who your real friends are. Those are the people who will show up at 3 a.m. when you need them. They will follow through on what you ask them for. You show up for them when it matters. That creates trust. When we have problems with boundaries, when we can't say no to others, and then we let our partner down or our child down or our best friend down because we could not negotiate needs with other people, someone's going to have to pay. And we often make the person pay who is the most understanding or who we assume won't go anywhere. So we got to really think about that. So honor your agreements. Don't make them if you're going to end up breaking them. That's really key. All right. So we said we'd put things in practice today. So I want to look at a couple scenarios today, kind of pulling together all the different things we've been talking about all month. And as you listen to these, I want you to try to identify what are the boundary issues? What's the good and not so great handling of situations maybe? And what do you see yourself struggling with or maybe getting better at and you're really proud of? Okay, so the first one is, let's say your partner leaves their stuff all over the kitchen counter. Like most days. They leave their keys, their papers, their empty cups, etc. It annoys the heck out of you because you'd like to have room to prep food, and it looks messy, so you end up cleaning it up or putting into piles. Many times you've asked them kindly to help you keep it clean, and you've promised you'll put your things away too. But it doesn't happen consistently. It'll happen right after you say something. Then it's good for a day or two, and then it's back to same old, same old. Sound familiar? And you begin to find yourself being annoyed, growing resentment, lacking respect for them, because you made an agreement with them and they didn't follow through, consistently enough for you to trust them. And you know that if you let it fester, you're going to become even angrier and more resentful and pull away. And you don't want to do that. So let's talk about a couple options that you might have. How do you resolve this without it turning into unhealthy dynamics or unhealthy conflict? Well, first, maybe instead of reacting, you can try to approach them at a good time when you both have a minute, not when you're pissed. That's not a good time. That may give you momentary courage, but it usually doesn't end well. They're just going to get defensive. So if you find a moment, keep the focus on you, not on them. You can say something to the effect of, when I find myself cleaning up after you, I get annoyed. I have talked to you about this plenty of times. I need to know if you can agree to keep the counter clean, which means each day we both do a sweep at night to clear it. I would be really grateful if we can make that a habit. I cannot keep picking up after you. That's parenting you and disrespectful to our partnership. So in saying this, you kept it about you, you let them know what you needed, and the ball went to them and they get to choose. And if they can choose to follow through, or maybe even come back at you and say, well, I'm willing to do this, but maybe not that. And you guys would figure out a workable solution, possibly a compromise for both of you. And then it works out. It becomes a non-issue. It falls off your radar. But here's the thing. If you've already done this, and they did it for 2 weeks, and then it went back to same old stuff, then you need to come at it a little harder and find a way to keep you in choice and not a hostage to whatever issues they're having with this. That is theirs to figure out. It may be their lack of commitment, it may be their boundary issues, maybe their immaturity, who knows. But you have to allow them to choose as well. So I would encourage, give them a heads up, saying, we've talked several times about keeping the counter clean, we even made an agreement, but unfortunately I haven't been able to count on you keeping up your end of the bargain. So I've decided from now on, by the end of the evening, whatever is left lying there that's yours, I'll put in a box and I'll stick it in the garage, which I will empty said box the next trash day. I know this sounds harsh and awful, but I'm not feeling heard or respected that you're taking my needs seriously. this way your partner, yes, they're going to be upset. What do you mean you're going to throw my stuff away? Who the hell do you think you are? But they get to choose what they want to do and own their choice. You are finally respecting yourself because, guys, nagging is just trying to control. That's fear. Trying to get them to see, get them to change so you don't have to set a badass boundary and maybe have a scary argument because we're afraid of what people will do. Will they leave? Will they become abusive? Will they stop talking to us? Now, of course, we want to make sure we're picking our battles here and focusing on things that matter. You don't want to set really harsh boundaries around small things every other day. But this issue here, I think, was pretty symbolic in the relationship because these two people did not have trust. And my assumption is it isn't just the kitchen counter that's a problem in this relationship. I'm sure there are other issues going on that they can or maybe cannot even talk about. The bottom line is it's trust. Functional trust. Can I count on you to do what you said you were going to do? Can you count on me? It's about personal responsibility. And in this scenario, you were trying to parent your partner and you didn't want to do that anymore. Growing up means owning our choices and sometimes finding out the hard way that we don't like our choices, but we got to suck it up and own them anyway. The second scenario is maybe your friend wants to have a get-together for their birthday. However, you're not comfortable hanging out with a bunch of friends inside given the pandemic. Your friend keeps trying to convince you that you shouldn't be worried, you're vaccinated, it'll be fine. Besides, it's their big birthday, and how could you try to ruin it? Come on. You state that you're very willing to plan an outdoor gathering, and you're open to lots of possibilities there. However, you're very firm with your boundaries about being indoors. You have small children that aren't vaccinated, and you simply can't risk it. Now, if it's a close friend, you might be able to call them out on, yeah, did you see it? The manipulation and the guilt? Because that was upsetting. That's their stuff, yes, but it upset you and you found it to be hurtful. And yet you also tell them, I need to accept that you really want to do this. But sadly, then I cannot be a part of it. I got to think about my kids. I'm willing to do outdoor stuff. I'm willing to do anything else, just not indoors. And regardless of your reaction, and I understand you're probably upset and disappointed, that is yours. And yes, it's very difficult for me to say no. I feel bad. I'd love to be there for your birthday. But I have to make the choice that feels best for me, as you have to do for yourself. So in this scenario, it's about standing firm in your boundaries and detaching and letting go and allowing the other person to have their process. And you can say it with love. I love you and no. I care about you and no, I can't do it. I feel disappointed that I can't even be a part of your birthday. And no, sorry, I can't do it. Empathy is separate from boundaries here. Caring and compassion and disappointment, all the feelings are there. They're very real. When we let them keep us from honoring our own boundaries, then we have a problem. Then you're not negotiating, you're a hostage. So hopefully you could identify some things there, maybe about yourself or people around you. I want you to think this month about how important negotiating is to have trust in our relationships, to make agreements that we feel okay about and that we can actually follow through on. We can build trust with one another. In order to do that, we have to have healthy boundaries. We need to know how to detach. We need to know what we're willing to do and not willing to do. And we need to accept the boundaries of the other, whether we like them or not. Negotiating needs is so important to build friendship and trust, no matter the relationship. To show mutual respect and, hey, to problem solve. Otherwise, we either shut down or we have constant unhealthy conflict. That's why I think negotiating is such an important skill that so many of us don't know how to do. And it's not talked about enough, and that's why I wanted to talk about it this month. Thank you so much for joining me today. May you stay healthy, grounded, hold on to your choices, they're yours, and focus on hope and good in the world. Be sure to check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com. Sign up for the newsletter there. That's where the bonus downloads are and all the other great information. So, pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.